In the early 90s, this Bentley Continental R was an exclusive two-door coupe that you could seat 4 passengers in total comfort, yet travel at very high speeds, and its original MSRP was around $600,000 to $700,000, and the closest competitor to the Continental R was the Mercedes C126 Coupe. That was a two-door version of their flagship S-Class, and in terms of its engineering capabilities, in its own form the 126 was special. But I do believe the Continental is much more unique, and in this video I am going to tell you everything you need to know about it. And to do that, I'm going to talk about a brief overview about the Continental R, guide you through the model lines, talk about the exterior design, go through the interior, its powertrain. I'm also going to drive it and have a chat with the owner about the maintenance and running costs. This was the first Bentley since the 1960s to not share a body with a Rolls-Royce platform. It was unveiled at the 1991 Geneva Motor Show, and it was built to resemble the racing history of the Bentley brand. It was offered exclusively as a Bentley, as previous models were just rebadged Rolls-Royces, previously labelled as the racing Rolls-Royce. And some people could argue that Bentleys that are sold today are far more superior in terms of the way they drive and the technology that is available on board. However, in many ways, I think the Continental R represents the last of the traditional coach-built Bentleys, and in terms of options, as you can see on the screen, you had an endless choice of colours for the exterior, interior trim and wood surrounds. It was truly a bespoke handmade motor car. And on your screen now is a list of variants over the Continental's life cycle. Then in 2003, the Continental R was replaced by the Continental GT, and that was the first car to be launched under Volkswagen's ownership, and it was the brand's most successful model, selling more than 25,000 units in the first 4 years of production. However, the Continental GT was sold in large numbers, and as a result it was not a coach-built car. In fact, it was based on a Volkswagen Phaeton, and as a result the Continental GT was not a hand-built car. So in many ways I think the Continental R represents one of the last of the traditional Bentleys. Let's now move on to the design. So the Continental R definitely has a lot of presence. This car took design elements from the 1985 Bentley Project 90. It does still retain its boxy shape, and I think that gives the car a lot of character. However, styling is subjective, so let me know down in the comments of what you think of the Continental R. This particular example is finished in Mason's black, and in terms of its key features, up the front you have the double halogen headlights with the orange indicators down the bottom, the mesh grille, which I think looks very classic. And moving towards the side view of the Continental R, it features a red pinstripe that goes along both sides of the car, which looks very elegant. 17-inch alloy wheels wrapped in Pirelli P0 tyres, ventilated discs on all 4 corners. The front calipers are double piston and single piston at the rear. This car does need good stopping performance as it weighs just under 2.5 tonnes. And if we move towards the rear design of the Continental R, as you can see it has a saloon-like rear end with the pointy tail lights at the back. They are halogen, and you've also got chrome on top of the bumper bar as well, but overall I think the design looks very timeless. Onto the interior design. So in the 90s, Bentleys were nicknamed as the Rolls-Royce for the driver. You still had the luxury as a Rolls-Royce, but the Bentleys were more driver orientated. So the way this dashboard was designed, everything was at reach towards the driver. You've also got additional dials showing battery voltage, oil pressure, additional information about the engine operation, and even the center dials. It's a clear font, easy to read, and you do have the Bentley labeling at the bottom. And that brings me on to the interior quality. So first impressions, it smells like an expensive handbag. So the scent is rich leather, and that's because there is leather everywhere. So on top of the dashboard, it is leather wrapped. Even the roof lining, that is leather as well. The vanity mirrors are wrapped in leather going along the center console, and even the armrests. The seats themselves are deep cushioned, so they are very soft and squidgy. It's finished in magnolia, and it's complemented by the polished walnut timber along the center console and along the door trims. You have polished chrome around the cabin. Even the air conditioning vents are finished in chrome as well, and it's also complemented by the red Wilton carpets. You have a 4-spoke leather-wrapped steering wheel opposed to the 3-spoke that came in some models. And for comfort, you have electric seat controls with memory function down the bottom here, along with automatic climate control, outside temperature gauge and an analog clock. You've also got a standard cassette player in the center as well. It also featured a standard gear selector rather than a column shift like what you would find on the saloons. And for practicality, there are 2 rear seats behind me, and to access the back seats, you just push this button and push the seat forward. And because of the overall design of the Continental R, large enough for adults and almost the same room as a saloon car as well. And in addition to that, you have a single handle here. and a second handle right behind the door for the rear passengers, making climbing outside the Continental R a little bit more effortless. You have the Milton carpeted boot, plenty of storage for suitcases going away on long trips, and this car also has its original factory literature, owner's logbooks, receipts, and even the original keys. It was built in September 1992, delivered new at Bentley York Motors in Sydney, New South Wales. It was the last car based on the SC Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit platform, and it also features the same powertrain as the Bentley Turbo R Saloon. So that means it's a hand-assembled 6 3/4 V8, and it's paired to a 4-speed automatic torque converter that was tuned exclusively by Rolls-Royce, with an electric gear selector matched with the engine speed, sending all of its power to the rear wheels. It also featured self-leveling hydraulic suspension with adaptive automatic ride control and a rack and pinion steering setup. Okay, moving on to the driving impressions, I would also like to introduce Paul, the owner.
Hi.
So in terms of first impressions, you have a long bonnet, obviously good all-round visibility thanks to the shape of the overall design, and in terms of the way it performs its power delivery, it's a low revving V8 engine, so the torque is available at all times.
Enormous bottom end torque, but the way it distributes across the revs, it's just a glorious experience.
You feel the car's weight when you do set off, but once you get over 60, the car does start speeding up. If you were to compare this with a 126 S-Class Coupe, the way it performs on the road, it's a totally different experience. So I think the S-Class was essentially an executive car where this was just built to be luxurious. It feels heavy. You drive through bumps rather than over them. There's a sense of occasion every time you take it out on the road. It's just a car you waft around in comfort and style.
They were so rare and so expensive. They were the most expensive car in the world.
And especially in the early 90s during the recession.
Not only were they 650,000 by the mid-90s, but you also needed to wait 12 months to take delivery after you placed your order. Sultan of Brunei took delivery of the first one. He wasn't willing to wait the 12 months, so he paid an inordinate amount of money for the first car off the stand, in the millions. The Bentley brand was waning in the shadow period. From 68 to 80, they only sold around 2,000 Bentleys in comparison to 10,000 Rolls Royces, and the brand was really languishing. But the turbo scenario and the sporting connotations, really brought vibrance and success to the brand, and has led it to where it is today. And the enormous emergence of new wealth, Lees and Rolls-Royces had a very different buyer demographic prior to the German ownership.
If you were to buy one of these, what would you look out for?
Firstly, locally delivered car would be desirable. There's very, very few of them here. I think there'd only be a dozen locally delivered Continental Rs. I always look for cars that have all their service history, have been serviced by the better Rolls-Royce mechanics. Not all owners have an approach where they are spending money. They're a specialised car, and anything that requires maintenance or servicing, I do it, and I do it proactively. Using the cars in terms of keeping them lubricated and keeping them active is a part of that process. I always coveted a Continental R through the time that I had a Bentley 8, a Turbo R and a Camargue. I also had a few Astons in that period, a DB5, and a couple of 70s V8s. I always wanted a Continental R. When I bought it from Paradise Garage, they bought it from a customer of theirs, and they did everything that was required.
Every time I saw it at Cars and Coffee events like Vaucluse Car Club, it was always the car everyone admired. It was amongst all the Lamborghinis and Ferraris, it was the car always attracting attention.
Yeah, well, that's nice to hear. Yeah, it's an amazing colour combination. His Mason's black with magnolia hide. I just thought, when I saw that it was available, I wasn't going to miss that opportunity. It's probably the most attractive colour combination available.
Oh, thanks for letting me do the video on it.
Mate, thank you.
So as a wrap up, what do I think overall about the Continental R? It's comfortable to drive, it has a timeless design, And being one of the last coach-built Bentleys, it is definitely desirable as they were sold in low numbers. These Continental Rs are very rare and exclusive, and properly handcrafted by Bentley, which represents an end of an era for bespoke coach-built motorcars. So I hope you enjoyed the film. Please give it a like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.